So again, appreciate everybody's interest in time in learning more about Indiana's imagery and elevation program. And we'll have opportunities to ask questions halfway through and then at the end. So you're welcome to put it in the chat, and we'll monitor that. We'll also you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions there when we get the time. So. Anyway, I am Sean Scholler from the Indiana Geographic Information Office, and I've had the pleasure of working with Matt from Wolpert. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Matt for introductions, and then also the other members of our team, Dan and Rick on the outreach program. So.
Yeah, real quick. Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Worthy. I am a geospatial project manager at Wolpert. Blessed to have the opportunity to manage the Indiana Orthoimagery and elevation programs for this cycle that we're discussing today. I've met a lot of you in person through our road shows that we've done, both in the central and the eastern part of the state. Looking forward to meeting some of you in the western part of the state. We have a slide at the very end with all of the contact information for myself, my cohorts at Wolpert, and also for the IoT GIO folks. So if you have any questions or you need anything, always feel free to reach out anytime.
Dan or Rick?
I'll step up.
Okay, go
ahead. My name is Rick Rawl. I'm with the Indiana Geographic Information Office. I am an outreach coordinator for the southern part of the state. Thank you for all being here. Dan?
Yes, I am Dan Council. I'm also an outreach coordinator with the state, and I'm for Northern Indiana. And sorry if I sound really bad. I'm in the car on the road, so making some stops today. But thanks everyone for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick and Dan. Yeah, so I think most of you have probably met them, but they're a part of our team on the outreach. So as you have questions, you're always welcome to reach out to them regarding any of our office programs, and myself as well for imagery and elevation. So. All right, with that, so yeah, again, Sean Scholler, I've had the neat opportunity to work in Indiana Geographic Information Office for the last 5 years. I got started working with the first program in 2021 on the imagery program. That was just imagery, and now we're looking at collecting both imagery and elevation LiDAR data. So. With that, let's go ahead and get started with some slides. So first off, I'd like to introduce the office kind of a little bit more. You can see we have two sides to our office. We have the enterprise and infrastructure side. Sandeep is the deputy GIO for the enterprise side. So that side team manages the licensing and coordination with our agencies. So a very, very critical part of our office. And then on the right side we have Steve Aldrich, and he's the deputy GIO for programs and outreach. So you can see our team there on the right with Rick and Dan in there as well. So. And all right, so I do want to mention one of our kind of keystone programs within our office, and that's the Indiana map. The Indiana map originally was back Indiana Geologic Water Surveys, managed by them. It got started back in the 90s, and for the purposes of developing that I-69 corridor that we all appreciate now. So but really some just 4 points on that. Number one is open data. So this is open access for all to access over 450 maps. I bet it's grown maybe closer to 500 now, but that includes the technological opportunity for us internally to build collaborations directly with our agencies and also other partners such as IGWS. So if you go to and look at a map, more than likely it's coming directly from the source. So you don't have to question, what is the is it up to date, is it current, and such. So the other, then the last point there is just that easy access and free for the AGOL community account. So this comes with community accounts, Esri community accounts that can be users can create. Oh, there we go. All right there. Sorry, I was there. All right, interruption there. So anyway, but you can create. So if you don't have an ArcGIS Online account, you can create one here and get started saving your own custom maps. It comes with an incredible suite of Esri tools such as field maps and other resources. So, all right. And let's so with that, let's go ahead and get started with why we're here to talk about our imagery and elevation program. So, we know communities, vendors, for projects have always collected imagery and elevation data. And the question we always have to ask is why, for a statewide project. And that's what these quotes speak to is why, what is the value of collecting these data sets for the entire state. And so always one of the biggest things that I was most interesting was when folks downloaded the data from 21 to 24. We had them fill out a quick survey, and they always checked more than just a single county. So that really solidified for me how important it is to have the statewide program available for people. So the authoritative data. So we talk about there's lots of different sources for imagery, and it's always important to make sure that you know your source and the intent for the purposes for that. So but here we have the defined resolution for the entire state. We are now up to a 3-inch resolution statewide product. So that's defining the resolution for the program. We also have that known accuracy. So we have the national standards that we apply for our accuracy. We have the professional level QA/QC that's done by NDOT, Land Aerial Surveys team. We'll talk about that, and then also just the opportunity to incorporate this into the USGS national map 3D elevation program. All right, and just another slide here on the management, collectively. So, another benefit, right? We deliver and have that designated timeline. We have the negotiated pricing for the entire program, and also, everybody's aware the more nuts and bolts you buy, the lower the unit price. So that's what we continually see with these programs as well. So and then also the QA/QC and then that consistent distribution, and that's where our office has been working hard at making sure that we have an open platform for people to access through the Indiana map and through our other resources. So. All right, let's talk a little bit about the history of our programs. And Indiana is pretty unique. We go back to 2005, 2006 was our first collection. And you can see we've had many collections since then in 2011, 16, 21. And in each of these collections, our office didn't exist until 2008. Our office didn't have funding until 2 years ago. So each of these programs relied on partners, and that's where I can't emphasize enough about the partnerships, the importance of partnerships to the success of our program. And certainly, we have funding now to support these base products, although there's always opportunities for gaining higher resolution, higher density, additional derived products. So that's where this latest round in 2025 now, we've been able to secure funding from another state agency for the buy up to 3-inch orthoimagery from the 6-inch base that we started with. So, and then LiDAR there at the bottom again in 2011 and 16. 2016 was completely funded by the U.S. Soil Conservation Service. It was, I still remember them coming, Chris Morse coming and saying, "Well, I'm actually up to $6.6 million that we can spend on LiDAR," and that was enough to get Indiana collected statewide at the quality level 2 for the entire state. So. All right, and just talk about every cycle we evaluate how we're doing and how we can improve. And here are just a few of the program's lessons learned on the cycles that we've done. So the data acquisition and availability, making sure that we prioritize making sure that the information's available, right? It's not only enough to collect it, we want to make sure that it's available. Managing risk assessment and environmental factors, that's always an ongoing concern, right? To making sure that we're efficient in our collection, and then so we don't have reflights. Communication with stakeholders and management partners. So many of you have been partners with your county, buying up to higher resolution, purchasing additional products, trusting us with your organizational needs. And we're always also looking to not duplicate our efforts. So we want to make sure that if Indiana's flying imagery, that the county is aware of it, and if they're interested in other imagery sources, that they can have the opportunity to maneuver those around our cycle. So and then anyway, so we've got others there, but that last, or the second to last, data processing, quality control. Again, I can't talk enough about NDOT land aerial surveys team going through and QA/QCing visually all 100% of Indiana's imagery. So, all right, let's talk about the program cycle. So here we are. We've modified things a little bit due to last year's collection. Matt will talk a little bit about that as well here on some of his slides. The biggest one is that I want everybody to be aware of is that our imagery, Indiana has for this program cycle involves both imagery and elevation data, and with the absence of the elevation data. This year for Tier 1, we're going to be supplying, Wolpert is supplying at no cost the 3-inch imagery for Tier 1 in 2025. And then we'll be repeating the collection of imagery and elevation data for Tier 1 in 2026. And then from there, you can see Indiana is just going to continue moving forward through the regular cycle across the state. So it is a little bit of change, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I'm sure there's some questions. The other is so for those counties in Tier 2 and Tier 3. We've worked with Wolpert to supply kind of a special in-cycle pricing of $140.64 per square mile. So that's if you had been counting on imagery, it's an opportunity to still acquire at a very good rate for your community. So. All right, and let's see. Let's just talk about the management. So what Indiana, our office goes out, does selects the vendor through an RFP process, and this is where their communities can leverage that and streamline. So you're no longer tied to working through the RFP process internally, and you can also take advantage of our pricing and also the that QA QC and that collective buying power. So all of these requests, we ask that you contact myself or Dan or Rick, and that way we can coordinate, because all of us have ears to the surrounding counties and potential partnerships, and that's really where the strength of this program lies in coordinating and allowing us to leverage up the opportunities for larger areas. So it's not just a single county. It's perhaps a multi-county area that's buying up. All right. And then, so let's talk about what the products are. And the imagery, I was going to say that it's the same as the last cycle, although with one major exception, and that is we've transitioned now with an additional partnership of now 3-inch statewide imagery. So that's where we've had in the past opportunities to buy up to 3-inch. That's no longer necessary for anyone to receive the 3-inch imagery. And then we also still have the trusty fourth band of that near infrared. So always making sure that people are aware of that fourth band near infrared if you're interested in looking at vegetation, looking at impervious versus pervious areas. So it's a wonderful extra band in there for analysis. And then lastly is the LiDAR, right? That's what's unique to this cycle, is that we're collecting quality level 1. So it comes at a vertical accuracy of 10 centimeters, and we'll have that available with the program. So. All right, the timeline. So how does this work? We do our planning in I have it in January. In reality, we're always in the planning stage, right? And that's where then in February we have the opportunity with the ground conditions and sky conditions that we can start acquiring imagery and leaf off. So that extends from February to April, and then March to August we start that processing. July, October we start the QA QC internal with INDOT, and then that September December timeline for producing final products and making those available. So. The last thing I want to talk about is that center point, and that's that partnership building. And again, so if you have questions regarding products, and we've gotten questions from county government to cities, obviously. We've state agencies, and we also have we've had engineering firms ask if they can piggyback on the program. So if there are needs, if you have a lot of work going on within a specific community, we're happy to talk about opportunities to build these partnerships. All right, and so to just mention again, our office, the Indiana Geographic Information Office, we have the state agencies, DNR, they have the Lake Rim Coastal Program. So if you're interested in imagery or elevation along that corridor of Lake Michigan, that imagery and elevation data is available on our resources. INDOT, of course, with their QA QC, the federal agencies, the USGS with 3DEP program that allows us to be a partner of a larger a larger program. So it's not just Indiana, we're leveraging up, and that's the same way with local governments leveraging up to the state program. We're doing the same with the U.S. Geologic Surveys. in the 3D elevation program. So I cannot emphasize enough of our university partners in hosting these products. So you've all probably heard the Indiana Spatial Data Portal and the Purdue forestry application for downloading the LiDAR and then some of the imagery products. But local governments, right? We don't want to forget about you, in supplying opportunities to leverage up additional higher product or higher resolution and those derived products. So. All right, and so let's here's the slide of the USGS. You can see that the tier 1 was selected through the NRCS. They identified that as an area of interest in helping to coordinate with the funding for the elevation products. All right, coordination. So here's, I want to just mention, if, I appreciate all, I know some of you have helped, in the past with this, but this is during the collection. So as Wilpert is up and, we have aircraft mobilized, we want to make sure that the ground conditions are suitable for collection, primarily for snow in those early months or early weeks of the program cycle. So that's where I've really appreciated being able to work with DNR employees, GIS vendors, to GIS managers, 911 directors, highway departments, across the state. As we get flooding, we need to know how what those flooding conditions are on the ground. So can't emphasize the importance of this piece. And then here's the slide for the NDOT aerial survey team, QC of the imagery. So, their primary things they look through are the seam lines, the bridge decks, total overall tonal balance, and just that image quality. And then they're also now going to be looking through the bare earth DEM that Wilpert is going to be producing for us to kind of visualize the elevation data. So we'll have eyes on 100% of the imagery across the state. All right, so here let's talk about the different imagery images that are different types of imagery that are available, right? And the one on the left is Google Imagery, and I like this slide because it allows us to explore, when using, Google Imagery or other, satellite vendors or licensed data, what is the intent? What is the accuracy of those data sets? And always making sure that, what you're using is being used for its appropriate use. And, for Google Imagery, it's wayfinding. It's just a kind of a general nice base map, right? We don't want to use it for measuring. We don't want to be, you're not going to go looking, obviously, to see, what the, improvements are on a property. There's right, it's leafed out, and you're unable to see the landscape and improved infrastructure. So, here we have 2016. That was a 12-inch resolution product. That was really neat, right? That 1 foot product. And then later we came along in 2021 and collected a 6-inch, and now we're down to 3-inch. And through this you can see that that level of detail, the level, just the crispness of the imagery. And the last thing I want to do is point out, it's not only the level of detail, it's also increasing in the horizontal accuracy. So based upon the horizontal accuracy specifications, we know that we can trust that the imagery is going to be within that 2-pixel distance of the resolution. So as our imagery resolution increased from 12-inch with a 2-foot horizontal accuracy. We are now at 3-inch with a 6-inch horizontal accuracy, which is really, quite phenomenal to think that will have the ability to look anywhere in the state and trust that the imagery is with the object that we see in the imagery is could be located within 6 inches of its location. All right, so let's talk just a little bit about some of the requirements for this, and that's where not only do we have the horizontal accuracy specifications, we also have the requirements of sun angle. So we know that the sun angle is not going to be beyond that 30-degree altitude. So the imagery is to be flown late enough in the springtime, so we were able to guarantee that that 30-degree sun angle, and also then for the shadows, so they're not too long, but not too but they're still available, right? And that's where in these screenshots, it's amazing how the shadow allows us to see and understand the features on the ground. If we didn't have shadowing in a wooded area, we'd be looking at a bunch of smudges and questioning what are we looking at. The building, we're able to identify the building outline much easier, and also with the technology that we've been using with digital sensors, we're able to now see underneath that shadowed area, so we're able to still pick out the sidewalks and other improved infrastructure underneath the shadows. So all right, let's talk about sky conditions. So, just briefly, we don't want the spotty clouds up overhead. We don't want the stratus clouds, and you can see what the shadowing does to our imagery. So that is not of interest for that, and that's where Woolpert takes and other vendors that we've had always take great effort in making sure that we have sunny sky conditions. All right, ground conditions. So let's here we have the kind of the before and after from this spring, but they're on the snow free. We on the left side, we do not want any of the snow on our imagery, and most certainly we don't want snow on during a LiDAR collection, as it will interfere with the elevation data that we're able to extract, and then also flood free. I think many of us remember the spring's flooding in southern Indiana, so we want to make sure that we don't have any lingering standing water, especially for the LiDAR, where that will affect our ability to extract elevation. So, all right, and here, let's just talk about the U.S. Quality levels. So let's we talked about imagery. Let's talk about the LiDAR, and we have the resolution that kind of distinguishes the LiDAR. Well, that's that point density. We have the accuracy, the vertical accuracy that's associated with the LiDAR. So where we speak of horizontal accuracy with imagery, we speak of vertical accuracy with LiDAR, and then we also have those base specifications for classifying. So that's where we oftentimes think of LiDAR as just an elevation product, and it's so much more than that because of the ability to classify points based on the intensity of the LiDAR. So that's where we're able to extract the bare earth point class. So that's used to classify that DEM, the DEM, the bare earth surface, and then we also have water and bridge decks that are part of that base classification from the USGS, and then we also have optional classifications, and this is where working with our DNR agency, we're working to secure funds to classify the building and vegetation for across the entire state. So as communities are looking to to extract buildings and also vegetation. We'll be able to use this pre-classified data set to extract the boundaries of these areas. So let's just talk a little bit. So, when we talk about a DEM, so what is it? What is a DEM versus, a DSM and such? So the DEM is that bare Earth surface of the Earth, and that's where it's that kind of that last return of the points on the lidar. So as the lidar penetrates through a tree canopy, that's that last return that's visualized. It does not include any of the buildings and vegetation. So that's all been removed, and that's what this is always referred to. If you're going to be doing the hydrologic modeling and such. So the hillshade is a visual product that can be created from the DEM. And you can see, the building footprint is just a footprint, right? There's a void of those lidar points that were sampled on the building. On the digital surface model, you can see where now we have the visibility of the building and also the trees in the area. So that's everything combined in the digital surface model, and then also the contours are derived from the digital elevation model, that DEM. So and then so here we're wrapping up on my segment, but I want to talk about how to go about how our organization supplies these products for the public to use. And first off is our imagery services that are open data. It's referring to the Amazon open data account that we've been able to deploy with with Amazon's help. We have all of our imagery and elevation products in an open bucket that's available for no cost for storage, and also best for you for egress. So if you're needing to download, there is no cost for that. We also have our web map applications. So here's a slide just kind of visualizing. So we have the imagery REST services. These REST services can be integrated with your ArcGIS Pro. They can be integrated with your AutoCAD, with your CAD suite. And if you need to, you can also add it to your web maps, right? We also have, if you need, for those that have a need to download the imagery, we have our tile grid. So here you can see the tile grid, and you can see the darker areas that signifies that higher, where the higher resolution has been collected because of that higher density in the grid size. But you can also see the Lake Michigan coastal program up there on along Lake Michigan. And then lastly, one that we haven't trying to get the word out on is our photo centers, and this is a layer that we've started managing now with since 2021, and it allows you, the user, to identify when this imagery was collected. So being able to narrow down to the specific day, and you can often if it's you're just needing to know the month, that's great. But in some cases over here in the where there are reflights, it could have been 2 months later when the imagery was collected for an adjoining flight line. So this resource is available on. So I want to emphasize that these are all available from the Indiana map, right? That's our open data platform, and that's where you can go to search these out. And I've also got the resource page directly. So we have our imagery resource page, the elevation resource page, and that's where we have documentation on how to go about adding these to your ArcGIS Pro project, as well as your CAD software. So please check those resources out. All right, and I'm going to just pause here for a minute and see if there are any questions.
That's either a really
Right.
good sign or a really bad sign,
Hey,
Sean.
all right,
You
we'll
did
go
such
with
a good
it.
job.
All right. Well, Pat, I'm gonna.
Hold on. Let me see if I can get everybody unmuted for a second. Okay, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
This is great. I've got no worries. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Matt, let's go ahead and work on the.
Hold on.
Second.
Somebody has their hand up.
Oh, okay.
They took it down.
I think Pat chimed in just for a second.
Okay. All right, proceed.
Sean, you want to go on to the next slide and I'll start my little bit. And we do have a spot for questions at the very end too, assuming we still have time, which I'm hoping we will. So if you have any questions, you can always post them in the chat, raise your hand, and all that good stuff. So again, my name is Matt Worthy, project manager at Woolpert. Woolpert is lucky to be the vendor of choice for the 2025 through 2028 imagery and elevation programs for the state of Indiana. Here's just a quick slide, obligatory information on Woolpert as a whole. So we do pride ourselves in being the world's fastest growing AEG company. So that's architecture, engineering, and geospatial. I myself sit on the geospatial side, but as you can imagine, these three things have a lot of overlap with each other. Geospatial, as this group probably well knows, covers a lot of ground and a lot of use cases. So we end up working with the different groups here at Woolpert. There's a lot of stats on the screen. I won't bore you with each individual one. The biggest things, in my opinion, are we now have presence on 5 continents around the world. We have focused on Indiana and Ohio in years past, dating back to our founding in 1911. But you know, we've reached out, branched out, and done projects worldwide. Indiana specifically, we've had an office there since the early 80s. It's located on North Alabama Street downtown in the old Sears building, which I think is really neat. So we've always had a presence in Indiana, working with the state, working with airports around the state, working with counties and communities and so forth. The biggest highlight on this list, other than that, is in the past year, we were actually upgraded to the number 39 firm in the Engineering News Record, which is a global survey that surveys the top performing engineering, architecture, geospatial companies around the world. And that was one of our big goals, to break the top 50. So that's a really big deal for us. Not represented on this slide, specific to this program. We do have partners in the state of Indiana, obviously the state itself, the GIO's office, DNR, INDOT, who's doing the reviews of a lot of our data. But also on the private side, we have 4 subcontractors, all small business, that handle various functions on the program for us. And they've been really helpful in getting the program off the ground and getting started on this cycle. So Sean, I don't know if you could pull the presentation back up.
Yeah. Sorry, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
Sorry.
So just to recap again, the products that we're delivering on this cycle, so it's both orthoimagery and elevation data in the form of LiDAR and the derivative products from that. So Sean pointed out that we did move from the base, which was a 6-inch product in orthoimagery, to a 3-inch product, which in my mind is one of the first, if not the first state to have statewide 3-inch orthoimagery, which is a really impressive feather in the cap for the state of Indiana. The state as a whole, and a lot of you may know, has been kind of a front runner in the geospatial realm. NISGIC, the National Association for State Geospatial Entities, has done, every couple of years they do a survey of kind of grading the different states and how they achieve different metrics as far as geospatial data and accessibility and that sort of thing goes. And Indiana is always near the top, if not at the top of those surveys every couple of years when they do them. So a little pat on the back for everybody that's involved in that. Again, just to recap the collection cycle. So we did start in the central tier of Indiana. Since the tiers run north-south, as you can kind of see in that left image. Central tier got imagery this year. We'll get imagery and LiDAR again next year. Then we'll move to the eastern tier, which is tier 2, then the western tier, which is tier 3. Every year we also do the Lake Michigan coastal area, which is managed by the Department of Natural Resources. We fly 3-inch orthoimagery and LiDAR for that area every year. So there's a lot of environmental change that happens. There's a lot of environmental management and erosion and that sort of thing that happens along that area. So it's high priority to capture more frequently than we would capture different parts of the state. Next slide, please. The first part of this process is setting ground control. The state of Indiana has a lot of existing ground control, which is also a helpful thing for us. Every year we go out and collect some new supplemental ground control. We'll also re-verify the accuracy on existing ground control as well. On the right side here, you see the ground control that we set, actually one of our subcontractors in Indiana set this past year. This is both photo ground control as well as LiDAR ground control, calibration points. There's different types of control that I won't bore everybody with, but one of the big things that we like to do, and whenever we can do it, is set photo IDs rather than going out and setting, if you've ever seen like a 1x1 tile that's set out in a field or some massive paint mark that's painted on the ground. Those are ground control generally, and so you can fly those, see them clearly on imagery, and be able to place that point very specifically. What we like to do when at all possible is use photo ID points, which you see on the left side is normally edges of concrete, corners of concrete, features that don't tend to move or change over time. Sometimes paint marks, if that's all we can deal with, although paint marks obviously change or get repainted, and even a small shift when we're talking about a resolution of 3-inch pixels, 6-inch accuracy, just repainting that line and being a little careless with where you repaint it can make a pretty big difference. So what this helps us do is be able to start flying while we're setting ground control. We don't have to worry about placing objects out in a field, for example, to be able to see them. But it also helps us be a little less invasive when we go out and collect control. We're not leaving any objects in people's fields. We're not leaving objects in people's yards. We're not painting up the sidewalk or anything like that. We can kind of get in, get out, and not interrupt day-to-day life. As you would imagine, especially in rural parts of the state, people don't really enjoy just some random guy with a lathe coming out on their property and taking some coordinates or doing whatever it looks like he's doing. So we can keep these to public spaces a lot of the time, to interfere less with the general public, which is always nice. Next slide. The next part of the process is actually collecting that data. We do all of this from fixed wing aircraft. What you see here on the left side is a Cessna 406. This is a turboprop aircraft that Wolpert owns and operates out of the Dayton area. We bring these over to Indiana this past year, or this past spring. We actually based out of Bloomington Bloomington for a little while, and then as we moved up north, we based out of South Bend. We kind of keep that flexible so that we can move around the state, be close to wherever it is we're flying, within reason, obviously. All of our aircraft, as you see in that picture on the left, have 2 ports in the belly of the plane. One big deal that helps us achieve is co-collecting data more or less simultaneously. So in theory, we can put a imaging sensor in one of the ports, then we can put a LiDAR sensor in one of the other ports, and shoot both products at the same time, which is what we've proposed doing with the state of Indiana. It makes it, in theory, we can cut our acquisition time in half, because not only are we collecting 2 products at the same time, we're using less aircraft to do so, less fuel, less time as well. And the product itself, those two data sets are more or less simultaneously collected alongside each other. Now, I bring in the complication of, when we do reflights, maybe there was some, voids in the LiDAR data that need to be recollected. Maybe there was something on the ground that the LiDAR could penetrate, but the imagery is affected in some way or another. So there are complications to it, obviously, and it brings in just one more thing we have to look out for. But it does cut down significantly on our acquisition costs and improves the general usability of the data. Next slide, please. Talking about QC, so as we fly this, Indiana's special in that we have the INDOT aerial surveys team. As we fly areas, we take that data off the aircraft, off the sensors, do a little bit of pre-processing to it, and then upload it to our Wolpert's proprietary web viewer, which we call SmartView Connect. And then not only our internal teams, but the INDOT aerial surveys team can go in and look at that data, not necessarily in real time, but in pretty rapid succession. They've been really helpful this past spring in identifying, these smaller, more specific areas of issue, right? It's easy to see when there's, clouds covering up an entire flight line. Nobody really misses those type of things, but smaller things that maybe it's only covering one frame like you see here, or maybe a couple frames. This is an example of somebody just burning the crop cover that they had in the field this spring. We've had issues with a little bit of flooding here and there, especially on the southern end of the state as we got through the spring. INDOT team has been really helpful, and this is a good process, not just for the state of Indiana, but just for statewide collects in general, because you are covering such a large area in pretty rapid succession. Next slide. Talk a little bit about the orthoimagery process. So the first thing we do is aerial triangulation, which you see over on the left side. That's taking all of these photos, which if you think of it like we're taking photos from an airplane, if you were just to lay out all these photos from like your Fujifilm cameras back in the day on a table, you need to line them up, and there's overlap between all of them. Aerial triangulation, or OT, uses common points within all of those images to effectively stitch them all together and keep them accurate relative to one another, right? So if you were to glue all those Fujifilm camera pictures together, they would be accurate to each other. You can move them around, take them to your dining room table, move them wherever you want, but they wouldn't be accurate necessarily to the ground itself. So in the next phase, when we do orthomosaicing and the processing of rectifying it to the ground, we're also rectifying it to control, which is tying it to a specific surface on the Earth, not only in 2D, but in 3D. So it takes the elevation into account. It affects some of the smearing or some of the warping that you would get from features that are on a 3D surface like the globe, but also keeps it more or less accurate. It's not always perfect. As you can see on the far right, we have issues a lot of times with elevated features like bridges, things where an elevation data would go down, but the feature itself maintains, a flat surface or even goes up. You can get warping, and some of that just has to go in and be manually fixed. Bridges are usually the most common thing. You can also get it in tall cell phone towers. You can get it in tall buildings. You can get it in power lines and that sort of thing. So we have a team that goes in and reviews the data after all this processing and fixes those issues. The last one, which kind of ties back to the second phase, if you go back one more, Sean, sorry, is the seam lining. So you can see that we take all these images, we stitch them together, we make one big image out of them, take all the overlap out, but we do have to go back in and fix some seam lining issues. So that's just one more thing that we keep an eye out for, and that's where INDOT tends to focus their review of our final imagery. The big ticket item as far as the imagery goes is that the INDOT team is looking at this as we go through the process, not only at the beginning, but at the very end as well. And that generally maintains consistency and maintains the quality of that product. So if anybody's like me, I hate having surprises at the very end, knowing that something is wrong and we're gonna have to go back and re-look at something. So this helps ward off that sort of thing. Next slide. LiDAR goes through a similar process. I won't go too much in detail here, but calibration to that control, classification, those classified classes that Sean had mentioned earlier that tie back to the USGS LiDAR base specification. And then lastly, hydroflattening, which takes all of these hydrographic surfaces where we get some kind of weird returns. Sometimes the light gets absorbed and we don't get good returns off of them, and maintains a flat surface over them. So not only is it visually appealing, but it also more accurately reflects the water surface at the time we collected it. Next slide. And
Matt,
as I mentioned,
we
yes.
can just go back one slide. There's 2 questions, and I think they fall very well into that last slide.
Okay, yeah.
So one of the questions is, does Woolport breach digital dams in generating a DEM for last return data?
If I'm understanding it right, maybe digital dams is misleading me, but just dams in general, the water surface would go up to a dam and then the elevation would drop off and it would be hydroflattened on the other side, just at a, you would think a lower elevation.
Okay. And then the second one is, are there plans to use the Zeus co-collection sensor, the 26 flights, or will the orthos and LiDAR be collected separately?
So the plan is still to use the Zeus sensor that Woolpert has built internally. We are maintaining a little bit of flexibility on that, but to the point of co-collection, the plan is still to co-collect imagery and LiDAR when at all possible, just to cut down on or to increase the efficiency of those 2 products and lessen the acquisition time itself. And I see there's a clarification on the first question.
Yes.
Where a road crosses a stream, this shows up as a dam when modeling more. So roads crossing streams at like a bridge gets removed from the elevation surface. And so it would basically just look like that road came up to the stream and stopped. And then in the elevation, you would see the stream below it. It wouldn't show up as a dam if that bridge is removed correctly.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep, no problem. Real quick, just to recap, the INDOT aerial surveys team looks at all this data as we go throughout the process. They actually are looking at the first block of orthoimagery for the tier 1 area this year right now. That's been going really well, and that team's been helping us out immensely on this project so far. So next slide. Real quick, just to recap some value-added data sets, things that are not necessarily part of the base specification or the base requirements for the 2 programs this cycle. Imagery and LiDAR are part of that requirement. Contours are another derivative product, which individual counties and communities can opt to buy up and purchase from that LiDAR. Sean had mentioned the building and vegetation classification, and then there's also building outlines, either from LiDAR or from imagery. These are all products, or just a few products, that have pre-negotiated pricing, which we have a slide on here in a minute. They are based on square mileage of your county/community. And so you can pretty easily figure out, if we wanted 1 foot or 2 foot contours, how much would that cost? Just multiply it by your area. And we'll show that here in a second. Sean, if you want to go to the next slide. There's a couple, really a lot of products that are not pre-negotiated on this contract. Just a few of examples are elevation-derived hydrography. If anybody's familiar with the USGS 3D HP or 3D hydrography program, this is kind of a follow-on to the 3D elevation program that they've been supporting over the years. So we're actually generating new hydrography, better, more accurate hydrography from the elevation data that has been collected, and delivering that as a separate product. Impervious surface mapping is another big one that's got a lot of interest. So this can include streets, edge of pavement, sidewalks, which has been really popular. And then it ties all these impervious surfaces together. You can tie that back to parcels as well. And then lastly, land cover, just as a final example, you can pull that from the imagery data that we have and do a little bit more classification of that imagery. Next slide. As I keep telling people whenever we have these roadshows or these webinars, this list is pretty much endless. There's a lot of buy-up products that Woolpert can produce off of these 2 data sets. Again, imagery and elevation are kind of those base map products, and then you can take that and dive down, do more analysis, do more feature extraction. Here's just a lot of examples. Again, some sidewalks, ADA compliance, planimetric mapping, change detection, bathymetric LiDAR is another type of acquisition we can do. True ortho collection is another type of acquisition. And then I say at the very end, comically, and many more. This list is generally endless. Even inside of this list, for the different things that we list out, we've had people approach us and say, well, I want impervious surfaces. And then we say, okay, well, what kind of impervious surfaces do you want? Well, we want sidewalks. And we're like, okay, well, that's kind of separate. And then they say, well, we want, something else. And then we want something on top of that. And so the point I try to make here is that, don't just read this and think you're buying a product off of a catalog and you're going to get what you get and that's it. We like to, both Wolpert and the state like to talk to you about what problems you're trying to solve, what data you need, and try to customize that product to what you actually need rather than giving you something that maybe fits part of the problem or just, is something we are just trying to sell you at the time. So if anybody has any questions about optional products or just other buy-ups or, like I've got this problem that I need to solve, I always implore you guys to reach out to myself, reach out to Sean, Rick, Dan, the others at the GIO and at Wolpert, and we can kind of point you in the right direction. Next slide. This is the table I was referring to just a minute ago that shows the different county-wide costs for the different products that are pre-negotiated pricing-wise. As I mentioned and Sean mentioned before me, there is no in-cycle 3-inch orthoimagery price because the state has already found funding for that. So nobody has to worry about kind of the complicated equation of, it costs this, but the state's going to contribute that, and so that deducts from our cost. There's no worry of that. The only time you would need to consider 3-inch in-cycle cost is for those tier 2 and tier 3 counties in 26 and 27, because we are offering a discount for those. We also offer out-of-cycle 3-inch imagery costs, out-of-cycle 6-inch imagery. And when we say in-cycle and out-of-cycle, really all we mean is, if we're collecting the western part of the state, but let's say Allen County wants a collection at that same time, then that would tentatively be out-of-cycle. And that goes for basically every county in those tiered systems. We have 2-foot contours, 1-foot contours, building vegetation, and building footprint layers as well. So if anybody has any questions about that, I will be posting a spreadsheet to the chat that outlines each county and how we've measured that county as far as area goes. You can find your county on there, and then you can just see what product you want and how much that would generally cost. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. Next slide. Anything that's not on that list, that's not a pre-negotiated price, this is the general process for requesting that type of proposal or pricing, as it were. The first step is reaching out to Sean Scholler, just defining what it is and where you need it. That's generally the first questions we have. And then if you're not sure, always feel free to ask or tell us what problem you're trying to solve, like I said. After that, Sean will hand me the information. We'll go through a process of estimating how much time that would take and how much it would cost us to do it, when we could do it, and that sort of thing. We'll also try to better define what the accuracy and the individual specifications are for that product. And then lastly, we'll provide that to you as a written proposal. And then lastly, if you're good with that proposal, I'm sure there are always some minor tweaks that need to happen. Wolpert issues a professional service agreement, essentially a contract that ties back to the statewide contract. This means that you don't have to go through your individual contracting or procurement departments. Generally, you don't have to worry about managing the contract yourself. Wolpert will manage that contract for you. Just ask for your signature, your county commissioner signature, however your approval process goes. The one last thing I'll add here is just if there is any buy-up that requires specific collection, say like an out-of-cycle imagery collection, out-of-cycle LiDAR, what have you, we do ask that you guys try to get those in writing, try to get those confirmed by January 1st of that specific year, just so we can include it in our flight planning. That's a pretty loose requirement, but it's good to give people kind of a date on the calendar. Next slide. Here's how you can contact Sean, Rick, Dan, myself, and Brian Stevens, the program director for this program. These are just emails. Again, if you need anything, feel free to reach out anytime to anybody on this list, and we can all point you in the correct direction. And then, Sean, I think that might have been the last slide.
Yes. Yep. Thank you, Matt.
No problem.
Again, I know we're at time. If happy to answer any questions if you have them. We'll also be posting the recording of this if you've got others that you'd like to share, and also the slides as well as a PDF. So with that, we'll take any remaining questions.
If you look in the chat, Matt, there's a little additional information on that one question on the breaching for the dams.
Yeah, I wonder if those are bridges or culverts. If they're culverts, generally you would not remove them from the surface. And so you correct, there would be no penetration under them that you would see. John Paul, I can, if you want to follow up, I can give you some more information about the 3D hydrography program and how we handle situations like that to model hydrography, basically burning through that culvert situation. But in general, if those are dams, they should be removed. And then Rick, I see we got one more question from Jason.
Yes.
Appropriate funds for BIOPS 25. Yeah, so Jason's question is basically for anybody that appropriated funds in 2025, is it possible to get an invoice near the end of the year so that those funds are not encumbered? Jason, we'll reach out to you and I think we can make that work to fit your needs. We'll just get a little bit more information from you, but in general, I don't think that would be too much of a problem.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. This is Jason because, we obviously, executed the contract with you guys, and we did buy up some contouring. So with maybe some of the challenges that are going to be going on through the funding cycle for counties and cities, which start next month, it would be nice to not have to ask them to reappropriate the money if they've already given it to us, so we can just hold on to that and get invoice or purchase order before the end of the year and use those funds for that. So that was just a thought. Thank you.
Yep, agreed. And it does bring up a good another point too. The state's funding partner for the 3-inch orthoimagery for the central tier didn't actually happen until after the acquisition season or at the very end of the acquisition season. So several of you do have existing contracts that have 3-inch orthoimagery buy-ups for your county or your community. Wolpert and the state are in the process of going through those and essentially letting you know that county-wide 3-inch ortho buy-up is no longer necessary. You'll be given the option essentially if you want to just take those funds back, you can do that if you want, or if you want to move those to a different buy-up product, you can also do that too.
Hi, Matt, it looks like Joanne Keene has a question. Joanne, do you want to unmute?
Yeah. Hello. Hi, Matt. Hey, Sean. Hey, everyone. So I'm going to ask the question that I typically ask as far as the agreement for the 26 central tier. Are you guys still in talks? Still in negotiation phase? What are you doing with the 2026 as far as when will that be finalized? The typically August is when I start putting out RFQ, things like that. Do you guys know what the plan is for that? Are you guys, like I said, still discussing things?
Yeah, the agreement still as it was for the last cycle. The only caveat is we're evaluating the like Matt said, the Zeus sensor for next year or considering an alternative. So that's but as far as the imagery, the 3-inch imagery, that's certainly coming around again in next year's collection. So with 2026 being designated for tier 1. And then the opportunities for those communities that anticipated imagery to be able to leverage that pricing that Wolpert's offering.
Will there be a formal written something written? Will it be stated on the Get in the Picture site? How would we? It's just something to share with commissioners or supervisors that this is an official thing.
Yeah, we'll have our contract and the products that will be available. Yep, we can certainly do that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
see, Rick, I don't see any more questions in the chat. And it doesn't look like anybody else has their hand up.
I think you're correct. Well, I think we can leave the meeting at, close this out. Thanks everybody for attending. If you do have follow-up questions or want to talk to one of us, please email. Happy to answer them.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone. All right. Have a nice afternoon.